Welcome to the hour of power. The hour of power.
Yeah, my Lord, my God sees value in me. But what Jesus said is, but it testifies to me. He also said, the living waters flow from me. And this gets me back to the original relationship in the garden. If we really want to know, how should I say, the ability to discern between good and evil implies you have to know what good is to also know what evil is.
Okay.
Okay? And this is what I'm saying, is people, we are in ignorance as to what God is, what a true parent is, and what real attendance is in that way. But Jesus was saying to these people, is your father is the devil. Okay? You attend these things because you think that relationship will give you life and living water, as he said. But in reality, our life, if we're very honest and simple about it, we're in the garden. Adam was created by God, and God said it was very good. Who defined the value of Adam?
God's opinion.
Right. So, and what substantiated Adam's value? His relationship to who? His creator.
Yeah, if he's able to...
His very father.
If he's able to utilize his free will to complete God's hope.
Right.
Yeah.
So being alive means, what Jesus was saying, being alive means being connected and part of God's very ideal, your very parent's ideal. And this is why lineage is important.
Right.
In the physical world, lineage is the substantial manifestation of God's ideal. It's the very foundation that it rests on.
You can't say you're a being of lineage if you don't have the attitude to accept the narrative.
Who your parent,
of
really.
Your progenitor.
Right. Who created you.
And the thing about a false God is there's a narrative created by so you're always accepting some narrative from some other, like you said, vertical. It's just right under our nose. We don't realize we're allowing something outside to define us.
Right.
Like that kid with the car. He's letting automobiles define him.
Right.
Make or break his day, his sense of value.
His sense of value and being. And it's not just physical objects. The one that just pops to my mind is the whole lesbian gay deal, is that we get to define who we are.
Oh, that's how sick it becomes.
Right, how sick it becomes. It's a false God. But actually, and look at where's the real root of this. It all goes back to the fall and the original garden. Father said many times, everything goes back to the garden.
That's where we rejected the narrative of God.
Yeah, but what was it? Lucifer. In Isaiah, it's very clear. When it talks about the crime of Lucifer, what was it? You will set your throne above me.
Ascend above God.
I will become God. In other words, when the created being says, no.
I don't want your narrative, I'll make a narrative of my own.
Well, not just that I don't want your narrative, but a matter of fact, I'm the creator.
That's insanity.
It's insanity. And I mean, I'll get kind of a little bit blunt right here to show it on the tape.
That is insanity. And that's exactly what the homosexual community is about.
That's exactly where I wanted to go. Right here without exposing it too much, but right here between my legs, anybody's legs, you look, it says whether you're male or female. It's right there.
Yeah, but we're gonna rewrite that.
But we are so good that we're gonna say, no, I get to define whether I am or am not.
We're going to make 71 different genders out of our pure imagination.
Now you took, and the thing is the world, we prop it up and these people, they're PhDs, they're this, they're piled higher and deeper. I hope the paper they got their PhD on is at least as off as Charmin, so it's useful for something. But, this is insanity.
It is insanity.
And yet, we put up with it constantly.
Yeah, I think it comes from emptiness, and I'd like to transition to talking about members of the church. Now, if you're a Christian, you probably see this type of thing in your church, but we were raised in the unification movement and under Sun Myung Moon, so we're going to talk about those politics. So I would say that the Messiah came in the second Advent form as the person of Reverend Moon, and the cure for sin, the cure for being lured into false gods, false narratives, false senses of value, and
purpose.
significance and purpose, is to accept self as child of Adam, the true Adam, to be grafted to the tree of life.
Yes.
And the book of Revelation says, blessed are those that wash their robes, that they may have right to the tree of life. In other words, that you are pure enough in heart to recognize the gift being given at the end of days by the returning Lord. And the gift being given is that you would be grafted into his blood lineage and become part of his family, which basically means your sense of value is in the proper parent-child relationship.
Yes.
And you can see yourself as a result of the will of a true man and a true woman. And that in itself would be liberating. And the Bible also says the meek shall inherit the earth. So it's a very simple fix, because you're transferring, your identity is being transferred. You're being reborn from a creature created by satanic lust and providence to a result created by God. And God and the true Adam, the true tree of life. Now, I would say this to my so-called church, friends. To be in the church, receive the blessing, which is the grafting, and not know the value of what you received, leaves you still open to false gods.
Yes.
And I'm just going to run off what I think the false gods within the unification sphere of society has been. I've seen people look at their position, just being a so-called able figure, right? Their position itself gives them a sense of value. And they even turn their nose up to the very family which God gave them at the blessing time. Ignore their spouse and kids and things like that, because what has more value is being recognized as a leader. So for unificationists are susceptible to the false god position. I've also seen unificationists be susceptible to legacy. Like, I'm going to go down in history as the person who helped the Messiah in this way and that way. And bottom line is, anything that you think is giving you a sense of value to where you're ignoring the simple gift of the Messiah is justified. It means you're in trouble. It doesn't matter what it is. But I did so much for Father. I was under Father's nose for 40 years. Yes, but did you protect what he gave you? Did you protect your children? Did you protect your spouse from the ravages of lack of love, culture? I mean, did you preserve it? Did you pay attention? Did you, and I see a lot of, people, they having a hard time with their spouse, but they excuse themselves from working it out because they imagine that there's something of greater value anyway. And if you look in the speech, I'll put it up on the screen, where Father says there's nothing more valuable than a blessed couple.
Yeah.
Past, present, or future. Past, present, or future. That means you will never find anything of higher value. So if our church culture doesn't rhyme with what Father said there, and it doesn't,
We got problems.
then that means we always stay prone to a different narrative. According to Father's narrative, he played the giver and gave us the thing of greatest value. He validated us to the greatest degree. He cannot give us anything of greater value, right? From his own reckoning. He gave us. But our value system, if not caught up to him, we don't catch true life. We're not animated by the gift. Like, when you receive something, you're like, man, you really gonna give this to me? Are you serious? Me? Right? And then you're like, oh, thank you, right? Right? And that animates you, and it makes you go into hugs, and right? And you're like, you know what I'm gonna do for you next? I don't even know, but I gotta do something. And there's a new life in it. There's a new renewing of a relationship through gift giving. And the more valuable the gift, the more passion is expressed, right? And I think if you knew the value of what you received, you'd be animated, but I don't think we do.
Yeah, and let me get back to what I said earlier, that it's inherent in us to worship, to attend. And due to the fall, we were separated from the original creator and our original parent that we should have that type of relationship with. This is why in restoration God had to come and lay down the Ten Commandments and say really what was very obvious. There are no other gods before me. But this is the thing. You are going to be in a relationship to God or a God, whether you realize it or not. And one of the biggest crimes I see of people in every institution, everything else or whatever, is they don't take responsibility for themselves and realize, listen, I am in these relationships, and just be honest about it. Every day and in every moment, we are in a worship relationship with something. The question is, who or what is it? Okay? And Jamal was talking, Father gave us the greatest of all gifts, the blessing. I remember the blessing in Korea that my wife and I attended. And afterwards was the entertainment. And I was actually quite wiped out, and the room was so full of people, it was hot, and I'm barely... But trying to hang on to what Father's saying, and through the translator. But there was one thing that I did hang on to. The only thing I honestly remember about all the words he said there. He said, if you are unable to be successful or fail at everything else in your life, the one thing to succeed in is your blessing. He says, that is the one thing you need to succeed in. Everything else isn't as important. That is it. So getting to what Jamal said, this is it.
You look at how meek and humble and low profile it is to say, oh yeah, well, I'm married. So it's not impressive to this world. So when you compare, well, how do I show up in the world in a way to have some gravity, right? And you're thinking, well, I need gravity, so this little marriage thing that I have is, yeah, that's nice, but you know, people don't really listen. So what you do when you do that is you say that God's narrative is not good enough. And do you see why the Bible says the meek shall inherit the earth?